Alright, day 2 for me and week 2 for you guys. Second day of working on the song, and you're going to notice some changes. I did put everything in blocks, and you're going to see that this is actually audio signals now instead of the MIDI. So basically what I had to do, these buttons I use for the bypass and button 4, they don't record automation, so I had to click record source, open up a new audio track, and then just recorded it and did everything live, which worked out just fine. And I added a bass line right here, and as you can see, I had automation recorded because this last note on it, it would make a bopping noise right at the end before the pre-chorus. So I had to take the audio levels, which was the master level, and then bring it at a decline to get rid of it. But because when you add the pre-chorus in blocks, it would cut off this part right here and left it open. So I just had to copy and paste it over it, and the red markings are patches that I put over it just so if I ever move anything around, I will remember, oh yeah, that's the red. I need to move that with it. But this is the same bass line for the intro and the chorus, except in the intro it's all straight, and in the chorus I added a sidechain compressor that makes it bounce with the kick drum. So I'm going to have you listen to the intro, listen to the bass, and to the pre-chorus, right into the chorus real quick. Alright, before we get too far into that, I'm going to talk about this bass. Alright, so for the bass, I used a mouse drum, and I chose Angel Choir, which is actually a pad, but inside of it, I boosted the very lowest frequencies and then smoothed it out all the way down to the highest, which it worked out really good. It made it a bass. The problem with it was there was lots of, when it would clip very high, there'd be lots of grainy sound, so I had to add a compressor and a maximizer, which compression for a bass, no big deal. Still, I mean, you can over-compress it, but I didn't do too much to it and then just maximized it, which worked out pretty good, being it's kind of hidden in the back. It's a driving force, but I added a kick drum to it in the chorus, so it ended up alright. And for the chorus, here, I'll just open that up. I didn't change anything in the Angel Choir except for the volume for the cutoff. I did the same thing, except I added the sidechain effect, which you can download from Propellerhead. The last video that they sent out, James posted a link for it, so I'll put that in my Dropbox below too, so you can check that out. If you want the file to this to make your own changes to or whatever, add me on Skype. That's Mr. Brandon Peoples. The link will also be below. Everything is lowercase, and I will file share that to you. I changed the beats. They were on 4. I put it on 3, 7, 11, and 15. They didn't fit with my song, you know. Didn't do much changing in there. For Kong, I actually only used three sounds. I'll switch over to you. You can see it right here. The first one is a kick drum. As you can see right here, line 1 is kick drum, and then 2 is hi-hat, and lane 3 is a rim click that's like, it's very roomy. I'll listen to it, let you listen to it. Just be aware that the first store is a run, so it does play even when it's muted. Whoops. That was the rim click. Hi-hats. This is the kick. I still have to tune the kick with the bass because they're pretty distracting right now, but I'll get there. Let's talk about the main chorus synth. Yeah, it is right here, all this delicious goodness. This is good. I'm very proud of this. Basically, I inserted the mixer, and then I put in 3 Thors and a delay. I didn't make any changes to the sound because I like using the sounds that come with it and then changing them with effects because that makes them unique. I might edit it inside if I'm doing a patch by myself, but anyways, this delay, the digital delay line, I have it set to 2, and it's an insert effect up here. And as you can see, I've panned the first 2 synths left, right, and the first one, whoops, is in the middle. The first one is in the middle, and basically what you do is you turn the delay up on the left and right one, and then make the one that's in the middle a little bit low, and get some pretty crazy stuff. Here, I'll solo it. We can listen to that by itself. I'm going to put this on loop and show you just what changing it, the left and right is going to sound like, how drastically it's a different synth. Oh yeah, that's 80s funk right there. Oh, forgot to put my loop on. I believe that's how I had it. Yeah. That's what I stuck with. Turn that back off. And then right down here you can see these little bitty, it's kind of more screechy because the emphasis in the main part is the build is that screechy behind it, and then in the pre-chorus, when everything drops up, it's a constant screechy type noise going through the back. So kind of brought more emphasis on that. And from yesterday, I did do a lot of MIDI editing because I just did it really quick. And then, so now I went back and got everything set back because Quantize will do it for you, but it's not going to be exact, even if you have Quantize set to 100%. And then basically, right after the chorus, it's that same drum line right here, or not drum, bass, and except I faded out one note before it did in the last time, and it opens up the kick down here. So it ends, it's like turning off a machine. It's like, ooh, that little bit of effect. I'll have it go. And it obviously cuts into that, what it started with in the intro, which will be the transition to the verse. And another thing about transitions, you never really want to do a transition before you write your verse, because if you build a transition, you're going to get to the verse and be like, wait a second, I built that up for something I didn't even have in my head yet. So you probably want to get something there just a little bit and then move over to the verse, finish the verse out, and then go back to the transition and see what fits best. Don't fit your verse to your transition. So later on I'll have like a sweep in there or put some effects over it, and then put some effects over it and put on some automation to sweep it out and bring it back in. Post a comment below. What would you name this track? I don't want to name it. I'd rather have you guys name it. I will pick something, even if only one person posts the name up. I'm going to pick the name. So I'll have this play once through. Alright, well, another thing I want to add, there is lots of empty spaces and transitions aren't made. I want to work through the song completely before I go back and smooth it out, if that makes any sense, because by the end of the song, the feel that I've created here is probably going to be a little bit different, so the transitions kind of need to hint the rest of the song. So I'll go back and smooth everything out. But I also forgot to talk about this. I mentioned what it did, but I didn't show you how I made it, and I accidentally labeled it chorus bass when this is actually chorus bass. That's actually a pad that I've created right there. And chorus bass, obviously. It's all messed up. I added a mouse drum and digital delay line. I did put a mixer in just because I like to add the effects and then manually do it in the mixer. And if I wanted to add anything else, another sound over, if I didn't like it, I could just add it real quick right in. But basically what I did was I bumped up the feedback. I don't know if this was all the way wet, but I made it all the way wet and put it on 2. Make sure it's on steps. And so instead of it being a pad, it's a little bouncy, drawn out, echoey, which pad already had, but it wasn't bouncy. And that's what I added to it, which makes it attack more. Also, another thing I want to add is when you're working with blocks, I personally don't like it, but as you can see, when I switch over to blocks, I'm in verse right now, so I'll change that to intro. The intro, I had this completely recorded all the way out, and there's the bass line. And the master level, which I had to take out because remember, it would clip it off right here when I added the pre-chorus. And the pre-chorus is what was right here, and you can see I just cropped it out, took it over to pre-chorus, and dropped it in. And then when I went over the song, I drew in pre-chorus, which is what covered this up. And that's why I had to overlay everything. Same with the transition. I had to go back, overlay it. But it seems I'm doing more copy and pasting with blocks, and then instead of it being an even flow, it just seems like I can see that it's more organized up here. Verse, transition, chorus, pre-chorus, intro, and I can see how it's useful, but I don't like that it's covering it up. I don't want to have to record over it, but I can just see where the advantages and disadvantages are. I also want to talk about mix levels. I tend to keep everything really even. As you can see, that Thor is always running, unless I have stop on. And I keep everything level, and I tend to use the master volume on the synth itself. It's just, I don't like switching back and forth. If I'm previewing a sound, I usually want to hear it above the mix, so I'll turn it up, and then when I'm done, I mix it back in here. But it tends that if you turn it all the way up in the mix, or if you turn it all the way up on the synth itself, you'll get the cracks and pops. And then you come over here, and it's fine, but I usually keep it halfway, and then adjust it in here. I always adjust on the synth first. So even though it looks like I don't mix, it mixes a little bit. I never touch the master, but as you probably saw when the song was playing, it clips a lot. So when I'm done, I'll remix it probably with this mixer. I don't really use the insert effects in this. I prefer to make combinators and then add the effects inside of that. It feels to me when everything is in its own little groups, I have more control over it. But when everything is accessible right here in this mixer, it's just a lot of switching back and forth to me. So until next time, part 3, day 3, week 3 for you guys. We can see how the verse goes, maybe touch the transition up, and I'll see you guys next week.